From Studio D, welcome to Dove Point Bible Study. We're so glad you joined us. Today we're right back in the book of Genesis. Today, chapter 34, so if you will go there. In our last lecture, Jacob and his family has left Paddan-aram and have moved back to the land of Canaan at the command of God. And even though Jacob has been gone for 20 years, the thought of encountering his twin brother Esau, who has vowed to kill him over the whole birthright issue, yet to Jacob's surprise, and we studied this last time, Esau ran to him, embraced him, kissed him, and he wept. This kind of grace was completely unexpected, and it proved disarming to Jacob, and he could only respond by pressing the gifts he had for Esau. He wouldn't say no. He wouldn't take no for an answer. He pressed them on him. And Esau returned that day on his way back to Mount Seir, and Jacob journeyed to Succoth, which means booths. We talked about that last time. And there he built himself a house and made sheds for his livestock. Then Jacob came safely into the city of Shechem. If you're looking at it, when we get to this word, it's S-H-E-C-H-E-M. It's Shechem, in the land of Canaan. All right, and he bought a parcel of land there from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father. Then Jacob built an altar and called it El Elohi Israel, which means God, the God of Israel. So Jacob secures a piece of property, and the first thing he does is build an altar in a land, think about this now, in a land where there are people who certainly do not follow God. In fact, they don't even know Him, not even close. And that brings us to where we left off. So Genesis 34 and verse 1. And I'll just tell you right now, there's trouble ahead, okay? Verse 1, and Dinah means judged or acquitted, and that's what's going to happen to her, okay? And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, all right, that's one of Jacob's wives, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. So they're in a brand new land. They're in Shechem, okay? And she goes out to see the other young ladies in the land. And I'm sure she's wanting to meet some friends living in this new land. But what happens next is not good at all. Verse 2, and when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. Now I'm just going to get real plain with it. He raped her. The Hebrew word there is forced rape, okay? Now, by Hebrew law, this calls for death on the part of the perpetrator, all right? So there's some bad people there in that land, and they certainly were not of Israel. And it was unlawful for her to mix with these people. Now, I want you to think about this, because he's right in the middle of all this. Old Satan has been after the woman since day one, since with Eve. So we've got a problem here. Houston, we have a problem. Verse 3, and his soul clave to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spoke kindly unto the damsel. I mean, this lad was seriously in love with this young lady. Yeah, he did what he did, but he really did love her, I guess, as much as you can on first sight. But you know, I used to play in a band back in the 70s, and we did jazz music, and we did a lot of music from the 40s. And there was a song we used to do, and it's called, very famous back then, it's called, I Got It Bad, and That Ain't Good. And it was about him falling in love, and that's what this guy had. He had it bad, and it wasn't good. Verse 4, and Shechem spoke unto his father Hamor, he runs to daddy, saying, get me this damsel to wife. I want to marry her. But, think about this, he didn't ask her about it, and I'm sure she feels like her life is absolutely ruined. Because Hebrew law, even if they wanted to get married, would not allow this to happen. So you know how she's feeling. She's been violated, and she's feeling bad. Verse 5. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now, his sons were with the cattle in the field. And Jacob held his peace until they came. Now, I'm quite sure that this was very hard for that father to do. But you got to think about this. He's in a strange land with a bunch of bad people. And he's way outnumbered. So the old man's moving with caution here. You understand? He's moving slow. Verse 6. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. So now it's father to father. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard the news, and they were red hot mad. They were angry. And the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. Okay? I'm already dry. Let's take a L'chaim break. Are you ready? Here we go out there. Now the L'chaim break, last meeting at the fellowship was really loud if you heard it. So here we go out there. Give it everything you got. Ready? L'chaim to life. Listen closely to this whole story, okay? Because God's going to teach us something here about how He handles things, okay? Verse 8. And Hamor communed with them, and that's, he communed with Jacob and the boys. The boys are mad, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. Hey, he wants to marry her. I pray you give him to wife. Okay? And of course, Hamor did not know the laws of Jacob's people. Okay? Verse 9. And make you marriages with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. Sounds good, right? That's what he thinks. And of course, that won't work, but they go along with it right here. They don't dispute him here. Listen carefully, verse 10. And you shall dwell with us in the land, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade you therein, and get you possessions therein. Okay, they want to trade. So it was obvious to the Hivites, all right, these are not good people, that Israel was very highly blessed. All the cattle, the donkeys, the whole thing. They could see he was very highly blessed. And Hamor's bunch wanted some of those possessions. All right? Now watch how they do this. Not knowing that it was Almighty God, Yahovah, who had blessed Israel with those possessions. But these guys, they're just looking for a good bargain, looking for a good deal, hoping to rip them off. Verse 11. And Shechem said unto her father, that's Dinah's father, that's Jacob, the guy that wants to marry her, hey, Jacob, and said unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, okay? And what shall you say unto me, and what you shall say unto me, I will give. In other words, he's talking about a dowry here, okay? In other words, whatever dowry you ask me for, he said, I'll pay it. I'll pay it. However high it is, I'll pay it. 12. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I'll give according as you shall say unto me, but give me the damsel to wife. Okay? So, he really did want to marry her. He really did have it bad. You know. And verse 13. And the sons of Jacob answered. Now watch. Watch this. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father. What's the next word? Deceitfully. Okay? Don't let that throw you. There's a reason for it. And said, because he had defiled Dinah, their sister, okay, so the boys are working up a little covert activity, if you will, on their end, so as not to violate God's law by intermarrying with the wrong family, which was strictly against what God said. You with me? Now, you remember the covert activity? You might think, well, would God go along with covert activity? Well, He did with Isaac's wife, Rebekah, when she set Jacob up to get the birthright, because God had told her when they were in her womb, when those boys were in her womb, Jacob and Esau, God told her that Jacob was the blessed one, that he would get the birthright. You remember this? And you remember what Rebekah did, how she worked through that thing? But she was working what God told her to work. She wasn't working on her own. God had already spoken to her, okay? So watch these guys and their covert activity. They don't want their daughter marrying in to the wrong family. Think about this. When you're dealing with the enemy, sometimes you've got to fight fire with fire, okay? You've got to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove, okay? Now watch what happens. Verse 14. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing, these are Jacob's boys, to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised. Here comes the plan, okay? For that were a reproach unto us. Now, they're talking about their law, but it's really deceit, okay? Covert activity, because they had answered deceitfully in the prior verse on purpose, and you are going to find out why in this chapter 15. But in this, we will consent unto you if you will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised. Talk about a trap. Now let's see how hot they are to get the goods and to get the girl. Okay, here, watch this now. This was their request to the Hivites, Jacob's boys. Now these two boys are actually blood brothers and sisters to Dinah, okay? Because Leah had both those boys and Dinah. This was their request, and they have a reason for it. Verse 16. Then will we give our daughters unto you, wink, wink, and we will take your daughters unto us, wink, wink, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. Okay? Now, they don't really mean this, but they're being coy here because they are way, way outnumbered, man to man, okay? So they're being very careful with their plan. Verse 17. But if you will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then will we take our daughters and we be gone. We're out of here. We're out of here. So what's it going to be, boys? All right, look at verse 18. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. And Shechem is so in love. I mean, he's in love that he would agree to about anything. And he just did, okay? Verse 19. And the young man deferred not to do the thing because he had delight in Jacob's daughter. All right? Let's take another L'chaim break here, shall we? Are you ready? Here we go. L'chaim to life. Let's reread 19. And the young man deferred not to do the thing. In other words, he didn't disagree with it. He's going to go along with it because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. And trust me, that ain't saying a whole lot, okay? But he was a little more honorable than the rest of the scallywags, okay? In other words, he was probably a good old boy, the kid was, but it was against God's covenant. Listen closely. It was against God's covenant that this should happen. Why? You know why. Because this was the bloodline through which the Christ child would come. All right? Way down the line, but they knew this. And Satan, think about this, he's right behind the scenes all the time. Satan would have loved those marriages. Oh, he would have had a party. And he probably had a whole lot to do with this, okay? Verse 20. And Hamor and Shechem, his son, came into the gate of the city and communed with the men of their city, saying. Now, I want you to remember this. I've taught this before, but remember in ancient times in the East, the gate of the city was where court was always held. Now, everybody in this room with me tonight was everybody but two, was with Terry and I when we were in Israel, when we toured Israel. And if you remember, we went to a gate of one of the cities, and the guide said, this is where they held court. Remember, it was outside. Remember that? Okay, so the gate of the city was where court was always held. You could even relate it to what we call today, it was the city hall. You're going to have a meeting. The city fathers are all there. 21. These men are peaceable with us, therefore let them dwell in the land and trade therein. For the land, behold, is large enough for them. This is Hamor trying to sell it to the other guys. Okay? Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. What a deal. They're pretty. Look at them. It's going to be a good deal. 22. Only herein will the men consent unto us for to dwell with us, to be one people, in every male among us be circumcised. And I'm sure some of them are thinking, and what does this mean? And then they told them, and so you know what happened. And as they are circumcised, okay, as the Hebrew people were circumcised, so they figured, here's what these guys figured. They wanted the loot so bad, okay? And the kid wanted the girl so bad. They figured this is a small request in light of all we stand to gain. Look at all that stuff they got. We won't even have to fight him. We'll just marry in and take it. That's what they're thinking. See where this is going? It's always about the money. The devil gets right down to it. It's always about the money. Now watch this carefully. Look at verse 23. Or do you want me to quit now? You want me to finish? Okay. All right. 23. And here's what they said in private at the meeting with the boys at the city hall. Shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Question mark. Oh. And now you're beginning to see their plan. Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. We've got them right where we want them. Now at this particular time, and because there were Perizzites and Hivites in the land of Canaan, then certainly there would have been Kenites as well, just as there is today. In fact, I could tell you some of them that are on the news right now, but not today. And I have no doubt in my mind, okay, that Satan was working through them and was trying to arrange all this, and had it happened, and it will not happen, but had it happened, the bloodline of Christ would have been tainted, and he would not have been the perfect sacrifice that had to be offered for the souls of all men of the entire world. Had it happened. Can you see where things are hanging here? They're hanging by a thread. And you can see how strict. Now I want you to listen to this really close. You can see how strict our Father's plan is, and yet had it not been for God's covenant and that strict contract, then our sins would never have been paid for. Okay? So the law was hard, but it was necessary at that time. Okay? So it's good, and it's good even today. All right? It'll keep you out of trouble. Verse 24. And unto Hamor and unto Shechem his son hearkeneth all that went out of the gate of his city, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of his city. Every single one of them. You know, I wonder who did it, but that's, I don't know who did it, but there was a whole bunch of them there at the city. So every man was circumcised, and they kept their end of the deal. Okay? Though you could cut the deceit with a knife, it was so thick. Okay? 25. Here we go. You ready? Are you enjoying that out there in TV land? Oh, here we go. You don't get this everywhere, you know. The Bible's real, isn't it? It's real. And it came to pass, verse 25, I love that. And it came to pass, and it did, right? On the third day, I like this, the third day, number of completion, right? When they were sore, oh, and were they ever sore? I mean, their togas, they weren't letting anything touch where they didn't want it to touch. They're just sitting still. They're toga free right now, okay? from the circumcision of naturally, of course, that two of the sons of Jacob, okay? So they're all sore, they can't move, and two of the sons of Jacob, let's read them, say them with me, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, these were the blood brothers of Dinah. Now watch. Took each man his sword, there's two of them, and came upon the city boldly. They came boldly. They meant business, and slew all the males. Killed every one of them. And went through them so quickly that it was over before they even knew what happened. Like a buzzsaw. It was done. They were all dead. Now, I can tell you this. Some people will say, well, God wouldn't do that. He did it. He did it. God had to be in this because only two men killed and slew every male in that town. These two men, who were full of righteous indignation, and that's okay when it's right, in protecting their sister's name and the reputation of Jacob's family and God's ordinances. All right? And I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that God used these two to carry out His justice and His vengeance on the unjust to protect His government and our future. Aren't you glad? He's a good God. Yeah, it was tough, but look what we got out of it. Billions of people now are saved because of this. 26, and they slew Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house. He already had her over there, and went out. In other words, her release was obtained. Okay? Hallelujah. 27, the sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city because they had defiled their sister. You know what they did? They took everything in that city that they wanted. Okay? Everything. 28, they took their sheep, read it, and they took their oxen, and they took their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field. They got the farms, they got the city houses, they got it all. Did they need it? Oh no, they didn't need it. They didn't need it at all. They were highly blessed. But what was it? Listen to me. It was vengeance. And Jesus told us, vengeance belongeth to God, and He is going to take it. And I talked about that in our last meeting at the Fall Fellowship. Okay? But they didn't need the stuff. And don't forget, I told you last time we met, God always, I mean underline it, always carries out justice and vengeance when it's called for. He does not miss. I told you, I got vindication on something that was 40 years old. Time don't mean nothing. God said, I'll get it, and He will get it. All right, verse 29. And all their wealth, they got all their wealth, and all their little ones, got all their children, and their wives took them captive and spoiled even all that was in the house. In other words, they took everything and made the people slaves. That's what they did. Okay? I made no excuses for the word. That's what it says. Verse 30. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, I love this, you have troubled me. I'm not sure that's exactly what he said. Yeah, I think he said, what the blank did you do? To make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites? Don't you know that they're descendants from the fallen angels? I'm in big trouble. That's what he's telling them. And the Perizzites are the descendants of the Nephilim from that second influx. And I, being few in number, Jacob says, they shall gather themselves against me, and they'll slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. So his faith kind of went out the window there, but he's going to be okay, all right? Because he didn't know that it was God was with these two boys. He's going to find out, all right? 31. Is that where I was at? Yeah, 31. Now watch this. Here's where the boys speak up to the old man just a little bit, and they're not wrong. Okay? Always do it with respect, kids. If you want to speak up, do it with respect. But you can speak to your parents. Here we go. And they said, should we deal with our sister as with a harlot? That's what you want us to do, Dad? In other words, Dad, do you expect us to stand by while they try to make a harlot out of our sister? Is that what you want? And these two had already defeated the whole city. And he didn't know this. So they weren't worried at all. God had already been with them. Why? Listen, because you know how God intervenes, and when God takes over, and he did in this case, then there is never any doubt about the outcome. Never a doubt. And God had intervened. 2 against the whole city? Oh yeah, he was there. Now we're into chapter 35 and verse 1. All right? And God said unto Jacob, arise, go to Bethel, the house of God, and dwell there, and make there an altar unto God that appeared unto thee when thou fleddest from the face of Esau thy brother. So when he was a young man, and he fled to Pandanaram to flee from Esau, God sent him to this place called Bethel, just a little bit north of Jerusalem. And that's where he had the dream. That's where he saw the ladder. And Bethel is where Jacob had that awesome dream the first time, where he saw the angels ascending and descending from heaven to earth. And what does God do? He brings him back to the self-same place, and he tells him to go there and build another altar. Why? Here we go. Because God has just given him a victory. They have taken the spoils, and they stood up for God's ordinances, and they proved themselves. Okay? But God wanted an altar put in this very special place, and Bethel is a very special place, and you'll find out why in this chapter. Verse 2. Then Jacob said unto his household, and all that were with him. Now remember, they've picked up all these spoils off of these Hivites. And Jacob said unto his household, and to all that were with him, put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments. You're coming up to the altar. In other words, if you found any idolatrous image or false god from those Hivites that you may have picked up, and they probably did because they were usually gold, in your spoils, then get rid of them, and get rid of them right now. I mean now. Verse 3, and let us arise and go up to Bethel, the house of God. That's what Bethel means. And I will make there an altar unto God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I went, and God was with him, both coming and going, in what? The pillar that Jacob anointed, and it became what? The stone of destiny. That's where he'd laid his head. He laid his toga down, put his head on a stone, and had a dream, and that's where he saw the angels. And he poured the oil on that stone and called it the house of God. Verse 4, and they gave unto Jacob all the strange gods which were in their hand, and all their earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. 5, and they journeyed, and they moved on, and the terror of God, watch this, the terror of God was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. What you need to know is these cities were loaded with Nephilim, with giants from the second influx. But when they saw what God did there at Shechem, they said, we don't want no part of this right now. We'll wait for a better day. So the word was out. You don't mess with this man Jacob, because God is with him. Same thing's true for you, my friend. If God is with you, you tell me who can be against you. There'll be no one. Verse 6. So Jacob came to Luz, L-U-Z, it's pronounced Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all of his people that were with him. So why did the people around Jacob's family not attack them? Because the terror of God was upon those cities, and the fear of God was upon those Perizzites and the Canaanites, that they had better not, listen to me, touch God's anointed. The same is true today. If you are anointed from the Father to do whatever, they better not lay a hand on you. They better not lay a hand on you, and you can count on God to back you up. Because only one touch, okay, one touch of God's finger put the fear of God in every one of them, and they left all of Jacob's people alone. All they needed was one little touch. They didn't need no more. If God is with you, again, I'll say it again, my friend, who can be against you? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of making that next step? It's okay. If God's shown it to you, use caution, use your common sense, but take it. That's faith. And that same thing applies to today. As long as you use your common sense, God will take care of today what you cannot. That is, if you have the faith to believe that. Okay? He will take care of you today. Just watch and see if you have that faith. Verse 7, and he built there an altar and called the place El Bethel, which means God of the house of God, because there God appeared unto him when he fled from the face of his brother. And he had seen God there. We covered this not long ago. He had built there, and he had seen God's angels climbing on that ladder. I mean, he saw, here's what he saw. He saw the very door to heaven. He saw the gateway. All right, he saw it with his natural eyes. That's what that ladder and that dream symbolized. He saw the opening. Verse 8, but Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak. And the name of it was called Allon Bakuth, okay, which means the oak of weeping, because she was greatly loved, all right? And you will remember from Genesis 24:59, I covered it back there, that in Eastern families, the nurse was very important and esteemed almost as a parent. And Deborah had loved Rebekah from the time she was a new bride and served as her assistant and her advisor, and later helped in bringing up the children. And she was greatly loved. And so that place is named after her, Allon Bakuth, all right? The daycare for Jacob's family. Verse 9, and God appeared unto Jacob again, watch this, 2 times. 2 times. When he came out of Pandanaram, and he blessed him again. 10, and God said unto him, thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. And that's what he went by after that. And Israel means the prince that contended with God. Remember when he wrestled him and God touched his hip and it went out of joint? He's referring to that time. And of course, Jacob didn't win that battle, but he was a contender. God won that, you know. Verse 11. Excuse me. And God said unto him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. Now watch this. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. Now I'm going to jump ahead of myself to you deeper students. That nation eventually became the United States of America, the single greatest nation in all of history. And that great company of nations was the Commonwealth of Great Britain, which is our brother, okay? And they certainly, kings certainly have come out of him. And the King James Bible that we have is one of those kings who got the Word of God put into the hands of, by this point, and the variations of that Bible, to billions of people around the world. That's one of those kings that spawned off of Jacob, okay? And basically, the nations that serve God today are the remnant of that very covenant that we're studying, that God made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. One more l'chaim. We're getting close to the end. I'm not wearing you out, am I? Am I wearing you out? All right, l'chaim to life. Verse 12. And the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed after thee will I give the land. It is a continuing, everlasting covenant. That's why Benjamin Netanyahu is not going to stand there and take what he's been taking, and he's going to stand on that land because he's talking about that land. 13, and God went up from him. God went up from Jacob in the place where he had talked with him. And here comes the setting of the pillar. 14, and Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, even a pillar of stone. And he poured a drink offering thereon, and he poured oil thereon. In other words, he anointed this place and the stone. 15, and Jacob called the name of the place where God spoke unto him, Bethel. So Jacob renewed the memorial of his faith as God had renewed his promise from chapter 28, verse 11, 22. And Bethel is about 12 miles north of Jerusalem, and it became a huge, in ancient times, a huge religious center. 16, and they journeyed from Bethel, and there was a little way to come to Ephrath, okay? And Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. Now, she'd already had the first son, Joseph. Now she's carrying Jacob's second son. Rachel's the one that he loved. And Ephrath means fruitful. But you're going to find out that it's actually Bethlehem. The name is actually Bethlehem, the house of bread. And Jacob's favorite, Rachel, had his second son, as we'll find in the next verse. And there's tragedy connected with this, okay? Life's sometimes pretty tough. 17, and it came to pass when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said unto her, Fear not, thou shalt have this son also. And she did. And Benjamin was born, but that hard labor was not good on her. Verse 18, and it came to pass, as her soul was departing, she's dying, for she died, that she called his name Ben-Ani. But his father called him Benjamin. Ben-Ani means the son of my sorrow. That's what she named him. But Israel changed his name to Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. And it's sad, sad day. It's a sad day. Because this is the woman Jacob fell in love with that day at the well, if you remember the story and how it went. 19. And Rachel died and was buried in the way of Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And it is no coincidence that the 12th, because Benjamin was the 12th son of Israel born, the 12th patriarch of the 12 tribes of Israel, Benjamin, was born in the exact same place that our Messiah Jesus would be born. Same place. Giving us what? Giving us that assurance concerning the seed line that Christ would come through, and the family of Adam kept it pure from Adam all the way down to Christ. 20, and Jacob set a pillar upon her grave. That is the pillar of Rachel's grave unto this day. And it is still there. Verse 21, and Israel journeyed and spread his tent toward the tower of Eder. And Eder means a flock, which I don't get, but that's what it means. And according to Jerome, an early Christian scholar, he said Eder was 1,000 paces from Bethlehem. Not far. 22, and it came to pass when Israel dwelt in the land that Reuben, Jacob's eldest, went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. Now that was in the past. And Israel heard it, and he found out about it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. So it was in the same place where the mishap happened with Reuben and Bilhah, okay? But now, yeah, that's quite a name, Bilhah, but that was her name. And anyway, so we've got the 12th one here, okay? In other words, Reuben, I'll just cover this real quick. Reuben uncovered his father's nakedness. And it will be written of in Leviticus 20 and verse 11 if you want to read it. And it says The man that lieth with his father's wife, think about it, okay, hath uncovered his father's nakedness. It's called incest. Woo, and it is highly frowned upon. Very, very highly. In other words, the sons of Jacob, now we have the sons of Jacob, there were 12, and here they are. Look at them. Look at verse 23. The sons of Leah are Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun. 24. The sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. 25. And the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. 26. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born unto him in Padanaram. 27. And Jacob came unto Isaac, his father, unto Mamre, unto the city of Arba, which is in Hebron. Okay, they're moving towards where his dad's buried, where Abraham, Isaac, sojourned. Look at 28. And the days of Isaac were 180 years, 180 years old, a good long life. Verse 29, and Isaac gave up the ghost and died and was gathered unto his people, being old and full of days. And his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. So we see the two sons coming together one more time to take care of Dad. So the 12 are born. Listen closely, I'm almost done. And the family continues. And the story will continue. And if you ever want a short recap of this family and their history, read Acts chapter 7, just one chapter, where Stephen, before they stoned him to death, gives a beautiful recap of this whole family, starting with Abraham right on down to Jesus Christ. So if you're looking for a good sermon out there, if I got people that are looking for a good sermon, you'll find it in Acts chapter 7. And the birth of Benjamin sealed the birth of the 12 tribes of Israel, but it brought about the death of Rachel, and she was buried at Bethlehem. So in the place that the 12th son of Israel, the 12th patriarch, would be born, it would be the same exact place, one more time, that a virgin who had conceived would give birth to a son, Jesus Christ, at Bethlehem, and they called him Emmanuel, which means, and you know what it means, God with us. And God planned it this way. It's not by happenstance. He planned the whole thing this way. And it was like 2,000 years later before Jesus was born after all this activity. Okay? It marked the place and gives you and I the assurance concerning the seed line through which that son would come through. And I can see God's hand on the fact that the 12th patriarch was born in that same place as our Messiah was born. And I find it captivating, and I find it very interesting that this chain of events, think about it, of the seed line through which Christ would come, going all the way back from the 8th day man right up to his birth. That one family, as it migrated and as it grew, okay, and with all the troubles, and it was not an easy walk by any stretch of the imagination, though God was with them. But one of faith has no problem with hardships, because your faith will always carry you through life's troubles. I don't care what they are. And yes, even the death of our loved ones is to know that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Okay? And as for me, okay, the story of this family, again, is captivating. It's intriguing. When I look at the migration and travel, coupled with the fact that even world history itself documents these events. Not just the Bible, world history will document it also. They are the Word of God, and our Heavenly Father is in control. And God always intercedes into the lives of those who have faith in Him, even today. See? I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed giving it to you. There's some powerful lessons there. And now I would like to send a big shout out to Cynthia from Conroe, Texas. Thank you for your kind words and your generosity. Your letter blessed my soul, okay? It blessed my soul and lifted me up. And I sincerely thank you for taking the time to write me. I did get blessed from it. And now, a big shout out to my friend Lynn. She lives up in Lamars, Iowa. Thank you for watching Dove Point, Lynn. I know you watch all the time. And I'll send you what I have on the study material you requested, okay? I'll get it to you. And I wanted to say this. You have the best sense of humor, Lynn, and I always enjoy your letters. Also, I would like to thank everyone who attended our Fall Fellowship and Tabernacle service for 2024. We had a full house. It was great. And we had people there from 7 different states. We had folks there from Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Colorado. Folks, Dove Point is growing, okay? And in 2025, we're going to increase our public gatherings so that our local congregation, as well as those who travel to visit us, will have more time to fellowship and get to know one another and enjoy the Word. And we can learn from one another. And when we get all the details, when I get all the details worked out, I will let you know where the next one will be. How's that? Okay? I'll do it from right here. And if you have never written us, we would really love to hear from you and find out what the Lord's doing with you in your neck of the woods, wherever you live. And right here is the address that you send it to. And hit that subscribe button for us and tell a friend about Dove Point. Won't you do that? Word of mouth is really the only advertisement we have, and it comes through you. Also, Studio D is very small. However, we do have a few seats open each week, and if you would like to sit through a taping, okay, of one of our programs, write me and give me your phone number, and I'll get back with you, okay, and I'll give you a time then when you can come. And for all those who already have my phone number, you can text me, and I'll get back with you. How's that? And whatever you do, do not miss any of these lectures. I say it every week, but I mean it with everything I have. Do not miss any of these lectures from the book of Genesis, the book of the beginning, because if you do not understand the beginning, then you will never understand the end, and that's the most important part, and we're real close to it. So, from myself and my staff, Abby, Ralph, Ramona, and Stephanie, we sincerely thank you for watching. And till next time, my friends, you know, shalom and shalom.